Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to our show. I skipped like 2 days, and I feel like it's been a lifetime. So I'm so used to talking to you guys every single day. So I am Attorney Farkazi. As many of you know, a lot of you have been following this page and are sending a lot of comments. So I am here again to answer whatever questions that you have live about immigration, but also to talk about real, valid, and legal immigration solutions available to you so that you can get your green card, your work permit, and your travel permit here in the United States. Remember that we do this show both in English and in Spanish, so feel free to ask me questions in either language. You can also call our office. Our office is multilingual, so call us at 630-504-0648. Hola a todos y bienvenido. Mi nombre es Farah Kazi, soy una abogada de inmigración. Estamos aquí cada día específico para usted para contestar algunas preguntas o dudas que usted tiene sobre su caso o sobre las noticias ahorita sobre inmigración. Si tiene alguna pregunta o necesita hablar conmigo personalmente, por favor, llámanos a 630-504-0648. Estamos aquí específico para ustedes y cada día estoy dedicado para cambiar las vidas, pero también para asegurar la comunidad y también para ayudarle en alguna manera. Yo sé que ahorita hay muchas noticias feas en televisión. Y yo estoy aquí para decir que no le importa quién es el presidente o cuál tipo de administración nosotros tenemos. Usted tiene derechos, se tiene opciones, se tiene soluciones y cada día nosotros recibimos aprobaciones. Mi respuesta de todo eso es que cámate y escogemos y juntos nosotros podemos escoger una solución para usted en que usted podría arreglar sus papeles dentro del país si es posible en alguna manera y puede vivir aquí legalmente y tranquilamente también. Si necesita más información, recuerde que usted puede hablar con nosotros personalmente en una evaluación completamente confidencial y gratuita también. Nuestro número es 630-504-0648. All right, let me say hello to a few people because there's a few people on here. So hello, Angel, Samantha, Chiquita Bakery. I have lots of Osi, Jovan, Sebi, Maria, Mary, Jose, hola, ¿cómo está? Nurse Johnny, Jimmy. I have so many people on here. Okay, great. So let's get started. If you guys have specific questions, of course, but otherwise I am going to go with whatever our topic is. And our topic today is talking all about immigration, that we have available to you, in particular, ones in which you can actually fix your papers here inside. And if that is an option for you, we will talk about that. I also want to talk to you just really quickly before we get into other stuff about an option that I feel like I haven't talked about that much recently. Actually just got a couple of approval, and so it jogged my memory that this is another option that's available to you. It's called military parole in play. If you haven't heard about it, it's if your spouse is in the military, in the Army, Navy Reserves, for example, or special forces, whatever that might be, and you yourself or your family members are undocumented, you have a way for you to get something called parole in place, which is protection from deportation, but also it's like a pardon for all of your time that you're here undocumented, and then it allows you to get your green card easily through that same family member. So say that you have a son or a daughter and they are in the military and they want to apply for you as a parent, right? So how would they go about doing it? You would first file the military parole in place, which is also called a PIP, and you would submit for a work permit as well. And then once that is approved, what that means is that basically all your time that you were here undocumented is now forgiven, so that your child, that same daughter or son or another family member who qualifies, that's over the age of 21 and is a citizen or a resident, will then apply for you normally, and you don't have to leave the country. So you don't have to worry about doing what is called consular process. All of it will be done inside the country, and you will eventually get your green card here inside the country, despite the fact that you've had an unlawful entry. It's a fantastic tool that's available to a lot of people, and it's just another way to really make sure that people are aware of what the high priority the government is placing on the military and on the sacrifice that everyone is making. So if you have questions about that, I would love to hear about it. But it is a special immigration option that really helps certain undocumented family members of U.S. military service members stay in the United States legally. Normally, for example, and I'll just explain this a little bit more. Normally, for example, people who enter the U.S. without permission must leave the country to apply for a green card, which can be risky, and especially in this climate, can really be something that a lot of people don't want to do. So military PIP actually allows eligible family members like spouses, parents, and children of active duty military, veterans, or reservists to stay in the U.S. while applying for legal status. It gives them temporary protection from deportation, which is fantastic, especially at this time, and sometimes helps them qualify for a green card without leaving the country. Why is this so important and why am I talking about it? Well, first, it keeps military families together while their loved ones serve. It helps ease the stress on service members so they can focus on protecting the country. It can be a pathway to getting a green card and eventually your citizenship. And it's a pathway that sometimes is not available in any other regard. And it's also just a program for the U.S. government to honor and support military families who have sacrificed so much for the country. It's something that I believe in very strongly. I think it's a fantastic tool, and I really, really appreciate when people take the time to learn more about that and then also to apply for it. Noela, mi hijo está en la Navy y me negaron para el empleo militar. ¿Puede aplicar otra vez o podría apelar su decisión también? ¿Sí? Hay una posibilidad que usted reciba una negación por alguna razón, por ejemplo, algún delito que usted tuvo en su historia. Si esta es su situación, hay unas maneras de corregir su situación, pero yo necesito revisar su historia para verificar que necesita más. ¿Ok? So, si usted quiere, llámame. Nosotros tenemos mucho éxito. Todos nuestros casos recibimos aprobaciones, pero también yo soy muy agresiva con mis aprobaciones y con mis aplicaciones. So, si usted recibe alguna negación, hay una manera de conseguir sus papeles otra vez y usted puede aplicar otra vez también. ¿Ok? Ok, so yo pienso que necesita que traducir todo otra vez, so un momento, por favor. Okay, I'm getting a lot of questions, so give me a minute because it's a little bit hard sometimes to scroll through. So just give me a second here. Noela, okay, Noela says it's porque él entró con visa juvenil, pero fue por abandono de papá. Ok, Noela, hablé conmigo porque yo pienso que yo tengo una opción para usted. Mi nombre otra vez es 630-504-0648. 630-504-0648. Halida, how are you? How long does it take the process for TPS and employment authorization? Honestly, it depends. These questions about how long it takes is so difficult to answer right now under this administration. I mean, I could give you like a rough estimate, but it can honestly be anywhere from 6 months to like and a half. Zane, is it okay if green card is missing a middle name, initials also not mentioned? Will it cause an issue? Depends on if it's your middle name for other important documentation. If you do, you should keep it all consistent, and you can actually make that correction relatively easy. Just go on the USCIS website, and you can put it to a search that you're correcting a name or making a correction, and you should be. You'll probably have to pay for it if that mistake was on your part, though. But it's not a huge. Okay. But will it be a problem upon reentry? Probably not. But like I said, if you do want to make it all consistent with your other legal documentation, then you can make that. See, if my husband was a police officer in his country, does that help the marriage petition? Not necessarily. The job of your husband's job doesn't necessarily make that much of a difference. What I could see is that it could potentially help in the showing a moral character, which is important, and just kind of dependability and reliability, which are also things that we can put into an application. Yes, can I apply for advance parole? I have DACA. Yes, you can. And you know the way that you can apply for advance parole, so for those of you who don't know about advance parole, is that you do it based on education or a work-based reason or some sort of family emergency. If you need help with that, absolutely give us a call. I will make my caveat here that right now advance parole is a little bit tricky because people are being put into secondary inspection when they are coming across the border. That does not mean that you should not apply, because especially for a DACA holder, I really do think that advanced parole is a good option. Remember that you get yourself in the process, but you don't necessarily get it immediately, and you don't have to use it immediately either. So applying for is usually a good idea. But again, I would have to review your case to tell you definitively. Doña, ¿cómo está? Buen día. Disculpe, hicimos mi petición el año pasado, aún no me aproban. ¿Qué pasó? Si voy a mi país, donde depende en cuál tipo de petición usted tiene primero, pero si usted tiene alguna petición y está pendiente, mi recomendación, usted no sale al país ahorita porque usted necesita algún permiso de viaje para salir, y si usted sale, parece que es un caso abandonado, ¿sí? Ese es mi aviso ahorita, pero yo necesito revisar toda su historia para hablar con usted directamente, ¿sí? Laura, you think I can get my son the juvenile visa? You cannot petition for your son for a visa, but your son might be able to get a juvenile visa based on abandonment of one parent, or if he has entered the country alone. So, and also if he's under the age of 21. So there are several requirements for a juvenile visa, but you yourself don't petition for it. He would have to petition for it himself, and we can actually talk about that in a consult if you'd like. Okay. Laura, hello. Okay, so Laura is asking the same question. Let's see, what else? Tanya, is it true that TSA is checking immigration status when traveling domestically? TSA always checks things regularly, so it's possible that they are. Honestly, it depends. There are certain points that we've been hearing about, in particular Puerto Rico and in Texas and in Florida, that they might be asking a few extra questions about your immigration status. But you know, a lot of this, like I say, is not new. I mean, TSA does have the right to ask those type of questions, and they do sometimes exhibit that right when they want to. If you're concerned about it, of course, give us a call so we can see if we can fix your paper so that you don't have to worry about that. Bella and Sophia, oh, I love those names. If I fill AOS for K2 visa, is included the form I-693. I think that's a specific question about a form. Give my office a call if you need help or you would like to file that. 630-504-0648. Hola Marco, ¿cómo está? ¿Cómo está? Buenos días, abogada, lindo día. Espero verla pronto. Bendiciones. Sí, yo también. ¿Cómo está? ¿Cómo está usted y cómo está su familia también? In the mix. Adjustment status was granted by court. I'm going to get my green card through court or USCIS. Okay, if it was granted in court, then you should be able to get it. You should be able to petition the court to get your green card. If you're confused about that, your attorney who was in court should be able to explain that process to you. I'm assuming that you must have had an attorney at that time, so they should be able to look into that to see where your green card is. Tanya, I have a pending asylum application with work authorization. Can I travel domestically? With work authorization, you could. Okay, here's my spiel about traveling domestically. Whether you are undocumented, whether you have a pending case, whether you have a work permit, whether you have like an approval but not a final approval, like prima facie, you can travel domestically. Just always understand that there's always a chance that they might ask you additional questions, specifically at the airport or at border checkpoints. That does not mean that you should then live in fear or that you should not travel. I am a person personally who absolutely loves to travel, so I feel like that is, you know, not one of the listed human rights. It should be. I just find it, you know, a very liberating thing to do. But understand that there's no guarantee of anything, and really, honestly, there's no guarantee regardless. I mean, even if you're a citizen, you could be pulled into secondary inspection, or you could, you know, run into some issues, right, with TSA or with security or whatever that might be. So I say all of that to tell you that yes, the answer is yes, you can travel domestic. You have to make the personal decision to see whether you want to or not. If you do, always keep your IDs and keep proof of a pending application. The other question that you asked was that you have a work permit. There's a lot of confusion about this, but a work is not the same as a travel permit. So you having a work permit does not signify that you can travel. Sometimes I'll get questions in the comments and they'll say, "Oh, I have a work permit. Can I leave the country?" No, because a work permit isn't a permit. If you want to leave the country, you would permit. Okay. All right. Let's see. How long does it take to after filing for correction? I heard it takes a year or more. I don't know. I mean, yes, it could potentially take up to a year or not. But remember, in your particular case, if you're the one who asked about the middle initial, if it's not a material thing that's going to create discrepancy, like for example, like your driver's license and all those other things don't necessarily have the middle initial, I don't see an issue with it. A relative got a driver's license in California using my address. I have DACA. He now lives in Florida. Am I at risk now? I am going to assume that this relative is undocumented and your address. Are you at risk? Well, the only thing that I can think potentially is obviously if immigration is looking for him and then they come knocking on your door is, instead because that address is listed. Yes, in that regard, yes. But generally speaking, that may not happen. But try to guard your own personal documents and your personal information, so that people don't do that, especially in this time. Mary Lou, hola abogada, buenos días. ¿Es seguro viajar con residencia? Oh, sí, por supuesto. Si usted tiene la residencia, usted se puede viajar sin problema. Residencia es el estado, es el deseo de todas las personas, ¿sí? Si usted tiene residencia, usted podría viajar. La única excepción es si usted recibe alguna noticia o si es una noticia que, por ejemplo, ahorita hay un castigo específico para viajar para las personas de algunos países musulmanos, por ejemplo, de Sudán o de Middle East o algo cosa. Hay una posibilidad que es más difícil para estas personas para viajar, pero si su país no está en la lista, usualmente no tenía algún problema. Pero recuerde, este no es un aviso legal, sí, es solamente consejo general. Si usted necesita usted quiere que yo revise su caso, yo puede revisar su caso primero antes de algún viaje. Hola Marilu, ok, sí, de México, viva México. Sí, me encantó ahorita ese nuevo presidente. ¿Cuál es su opinión de ese nuevo presidente en México? Tenía muchos nuevos leyes y reglas y algo cosas, ¿sí? Es diferente. Ok, dígame un poco de su opinión de eso, ¿sí? All right. Petition for my stepson. His mom brought him legally without our consent. Should the child live with me? Well, that's two separate questions. One, a child who doesn't have anybody else, obviously, I would say open your doors to him and let him live with you. If you're asking if there's like a risk for you, for a child, possibly. I mean, there's always a small minimal risk probably, but I'm sure the benefits probably outweigh those risks. But more importantly, I would like to find out what solutions we have available to him, because if he was brought here, it's entirely possible that he could qualify for a juvenile visa or for asylum, for example, just off the top of my head. There might be other things as well. So why don't we see if we can get him his paperwork, as long as he's here. All my IDs and my passport have my middle name mentioned. Even the Social Security office is not important. Okay, Zane, I think that you need to give our office a call so that I can review all of your paperwork to let you know specifically. But otherwise, if you are if you are a little bit concerned or worried, then you can certainly contact USCIS to get that name changed. Mary Lou, let's see what Mary Lou says. Muy orgullosa de mi presidente mujer en la historia de México. Sí, sí, y también ella se hizo muchos trabajos muy buenos, sí. Es increíble de mirar, sí, y de ver. Es un clima muy diferente para México ahorita, sí, ponía. Okay, Carrie, I have DACA and a removal order from 2005. I was 8 years old. I have an approved AP. What do you advise? I advise that you contact me ASAP so that I can review your history and make some sort of plan for you in case you need to travel. Give me a call, 630-504-0644. Okay, so I just realized that I never translated all that stuff that I talked about military PIP. I didn't translate it to Spanish, so bear with me, those of you who speak English, so that I can just translate that so that those who are listening in Spanish can also understand. Nosotros hablamos de algún que es muy importante, pero a veces no escuchan o no tenemos muchos videos sobre ese tópico. O, el permiso militar en el lugar, como es llamado PIP, es una opción especial de inmigración que hay ciertos familiares indocumentados de miembros de servicio militar de los Estados Unidos. ¿Cómo funciona? Normalmente las personas que ingresaron a los Estados Unidos sin permiso deben salir del país para solicitar una tarjeta verde, lo que puede ser riesgoso, ¿sí? Ahorita, específico en este clima. El PIP militar permite a los miembros de la familia elegibles como cónyuges o como padres o hijos de militares en servicio activo, veteranos o reservistas, ¿sí? Permanecer en los Estados Unidos mientras solicitan un estatus legal. Es un beneficio, es un gran beneficio para todas las personas. Les brinda protección temporal contra la deportación y a veces les ayuda a calificar para una tarjeta verde sin salir del país. ¿Por qué este es importante para ustedes? Mantiene unidas a las familias militares mientras sus seres queridos sirven. Ayuda a aliviar el estrés de los miembros del servicio. Puede ser un cambio para tener una tarjeta verde y eventualmente su ciudadanía también. Este programa es una forma en que el gobierno de los Estados Unidos honre y apoya las familias militares que se sacrifiquen tanto para nuestro país. Si tiene alguna duda o tiene alguna pregunta de eso, o usted quiere más información de eso, hablamos de otra vez. Nuestro número es 630-504-0648. Estamos cada día específico para ustedes, okay? So, let me go back to in English because I see some English things here. So, Sophie, what is the difference between deportation and voluntary removal? Which is best? How can you go visit your home country after you've become a U.S. citizen from asylum? If you're a citizen, you can leave the country. You can visit. You are now a U.S. citizen. You have all of those rights. What is between auto deportation and voluntary removal? I think you mean like self-deportation and voluntary removal, or being deported and then voluntary removal. So generally speaking, if you're like in a court process, for example, and you're given that choice, generally speaking, and remember, I'm not giving you legal advice because I don't know specific things about your case, but generally speaking, it's better for you to volunteer to be removed rather than you to be deported. But again, each one of those cases are very complicated and very nuanced. And so I would absolutely be hesitant to give you a definitive answer one way or another without looking at your case. You also want to make sure that you have an attorney who's very well versed in those type of things. You don't want somebody who doesn't really know, or this is, something that they're not fully abreast of, because if you choose the wrong option, it could have consequences for you in the future for you to be able to fix your papers. So make sure, and that same note, I would also say that if you do have any criminal history and you encounter a criminal attorney that is trying to help you in a criminal case, make sure that criminal attorney also then verifies with an immigration attorney before you take any sort of plea or agree to any sentencing. It's tremendously important. I cannot tell you how many cases I have that come from other people that have not consulted with immigration, and then they have pled either guilty or they've agreed to some sort of sentencing or whatever it is, and it has been detrimental to the immigration case. So very, very important for you then to make sure that you talk to both an immigration attorney and a criminal attorney, and that they all kind of work together to come up with your plea or your sentencing or your plan. All right. On that note, I am going to I'm going to sign off, but I wanted to give you guys one last little plug. Today, we are doing something really cool at 7 p.m. Central Time. We will have an actual live client available on this channel, and she will be talking all about the T visa and her process and her story. But it'll be also a fantastic way for you to ask whatever questions that you have specifically about an option, and just maybe, find out how we work and what the process is and what kind of like things that you need to worry about and things like that. The program will be all in English. It's going to be amazing. It's at 7 p.m. tonight. Please tune in if you're able to. I think you guys are going to really get a lot of benefit out of it. And there's so many questions, particularly about the T visa. So we're going to be doing more of these programs. I have had so many clients of mine approach me and say, hey, I really, really want to talk to people about this because it has been so life-changing. And so we're just starting this new series so that you guys can actually talk to our clients who have approvals, who have green cards in their hand, and are now able to tell you, like firsthand what their experience was like, and what kind of things that you need to look out for while you're getting your process taken care of. So I hope you'll join us 7 p.m. tonight, and I am gonna talk to you all later on tonight. Bye.